Hey there! Did you know Kroger always gives you savings and rewards on top of our lower-than-low prices? And when you download the Kroger app, you'll enjoy over $500 in savings every week with digital coupons. And don't forget fuel points to help you save up to $1 per gallon at the pump. Want to save even more? With a Boost membership, you'll get double fuel points and free delivery. So shop and save big at Kroger today. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Savings may vary by state. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
While the world whizzes by, enjoy a moment of me time with Tim Hortons' new $6 breakfast bundle. Savor a small hot or iced coffee, then add your choice of a mouth-watering hot breakfast sandwich and a crispy golden hash brown and your pick of a classic donut. Yeah. All for $6, all just for you. Make your mornings all about me time with our $6 breakfast bundle. Available at your neighborhood Tim Hortons. Price and participation vary. Terms apply.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AI Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our Quick Publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AI Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AI Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to the first Anfield Index Under Pressure podcast of 2024. My name's Dan Kennett, and what a glorious first podcast of 2024 this is going to be. With me to talk about Liverpool 4, Newcastle 2. I've got the new A team. I've got the sports science duo. Good evening, chaps. Evening, Phil.
How are we doing, boys? We good?
Pretty good, mate. You've got to be pretty good.
I was going to say, lovely little start to the year. Lovely start.
And Mr. Sports Science himself is the hardest working man in sports science. It's Mr. Simon Brundish.
Evening, boys. Do you know what? This is one of those opportunities after a game like that we should screen grab our group chat during the game. If you boys falling off the fucking cliff and me going, no, we're going to win this. I'm having a great time.
Brilliant. Have you had any days off over Christmas, Si? That's what the world wants to know.
I was ill, so I had sad days off, and but theoretically today is I've been working like bits and bobs throughout. So
yeah, back to full health.
I had one actual day off.
Yeah, and he's from the Times newspaper. It's Mr. Hamzah Khalik-Lunat. Good evening, Hamzah.
Evening, everyone. The A team is a bit generous. It can't be A team without gags. For everyone that still remembers gags on Under Pressure.
Yeah,
that's original A team and Harinder's gif of gags as face.
No, he was bad attitude. Yeah, I don't think we'll ever get gags back on Under Pressure again, will we, say? Maybe if we were in the league.
It's the end of the season, right?
Yeah, that's what we're going to talk about. Right, anyway, we are here to talk about a fantastic game of football last night. And just before we go into all the numbers and stuff, as per usual, we'll start with those lineups and game plans. So, Si, we'd actually had 5 days between matches. I mean, what new devilry is this?
It felt like over Christmas, everyone whines about how many games everybody has, but this is the second year in a row where we've had a really, really favourable schedule. I was talking about this the whole time. This is our great opportunity. We kind of screwed it a little bit earlier on, but if we're going to finish the this block in style, this is the way to go. That's as close to the first team as we could have put out in this situation. I wonder if, as narratives change throughout the Christmas with fans, with Cara, with a bit of the media, with the Twitter, if this is the first consensus 11 we've put out all season, maybe even for 3 seasons.
No, because I play Jota every time.
Fair enough. But consensus doesn't mean everybody.
Yeah. Some weirdos like me.
I think, yeah.
And I'd always play Matip over Gomez. I'd always play Matip over
was man of the match.
Yeah, I'd always play Matip over Canate and Robertson over Gomez. Yeah, but yeah. Do you mean with the players that is he?
Yeah. The possible available.
Oh yeah, well he wasn't going to start Jota because he's not had enough games yet.
Jota couldn't have played. So of the potential starting 11, this was the one that would have been picked by nearly everybody.
Yeah, and everybody was worried that Jones wasn't going to start, wasn't he? But after those 2 amazing performances against West Ham and Arsenal, I think he had to start because he was so good in those games.
Yeah. Well, and Klopp's been talking him up, and I think how we set up this was to go front foot. We were going to go man for man, and we set up to occupy them, to be progressive, to give them as many decisions as possible to make individually as quickly as possible. And we've got all our street ballers on the pitch at the same time. We've got as many dribblers as we could possibly have on the pitch at the same time, and huge physical units. So, given the weather, when we were driving home last night, I was like, it was absolutely hurling. I was like, because after you'd messaged that this is what it was like in Liverpool, I was like, this is going to be a terrible technical game.
Yeah,
it might be really fun.
It was horrific weather conditions. It was basically torrential rain all night and 20-mile-an-hour winds, and we came up with that performance.
Unbelievable. Yeah. The hardy Newcastle all effort, the incessant pressing, the physical team in black and white. It looked like a weak Kevin Keegan team in the end.
It looked like an Eddie Howe team, dare I say it.
It really looked like it, didn't it? If you could take Bruno out of that, didn't it just look like a Bournemouth team?
Well, they played like one, that's for sure. This was good old Eddie Howe, the return of the king, Eddie Howe.
Can I just preface this by can I give you the like physical performance numbers while we're doing it?
Yeah.
So the narrative around Newcastle is how hard they work, and this is the under Eddie Howe, they're the fittest team, blah, 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 blah. They grind teams into submission in Europe. They've been pressing them to death. And both teams did 115, which is a lot, which is high. But Liverpool also hit their sprint PB of the season with 185 sprints, which is insane. And this is I'm aggregating data. I've been talking to a bunch of sports scientists over this over the last 2 weeks. That there is, I noticed a trend 2 seasons ago, but it's definitely prevalent that this is the period that the 2 weeks over Christmas we have this weird blip of increased number of kilometers covered in a game when everybody's tired. My feeling is that it's transition based. That you go for a period where everyone's a bit shit, so there are much more turnovers during a game. So there's a lot. But do you remember like 5 years ago, and then 3 years ago, where we had 2 games in like 2 days? It was like we ended up in Sunderland back to back, and Lallana did 13.5k in 2 games, and then the season after Milner did 13k in 2 games. Like we're hitting those massive numbers. Everybody across the league is doing that in the week after Christmas. It's weird.
Yeah, that is weird.
It's just the high speed numbers are down, the total distances are up.
Yeah, but 185 sprints, that was a season high, did you say, for us?
Yeah, season high for us, yeah.
Wow, fair place. Can I assess a technical point? So something that was discussed in our WhatsApp group during the week between you and Barts. The strategy of having 5 days in between games, but giving the players 2 days off. So that was a choice, yeah?
Yeah.
So what do you want to just give a technical note on the decisions that could have been made there?
So it depends how you set up your season, but how match day +1, match day +2, dependent on how it aligns is you go match day +1, match day +2, match day +3, and then you start to count back from the game ahead. So match day -3, -2, -1, and you have set protocols for those days. Problem is when those days align. So if match day -2 is also game day +2, then game day +2 takes charge. Does that make sense? And so the training that you would do on match day -3 goes out the window if it's match day +1.
Yeah.
And so with this, we actually get a match day -3. So what would happen is the 2 days after the game, they get off instead of doing active recovery. And they basically get to be off their feet. And you just to clear your head a little bit and have Christmas, and then come back as footballers, having been a human for 2 days, which is remarkable, and it's incredibly unusual in England over the Christmas period. And they get to come back a little bit invigorated and then hit actual training. So they'll be able to do real on-field like tactical challenges in 11 versus 11 because they've not been able to do that for 9 weeks.
So chances are, given if it was any other period of the year, their coaching staff might have said, "Okay, well we'll do light recovery work on those 2 days, and then we'll do the full normal training from the third day." But because it was Christmas time, 2 days off, everybody just come back in, see you Wednesday, kind of thing. Yeah.
No, I think largely it's got to do with it being Christmas because they're humans and we have good humans in charge of us. But I also think it's just to do with mitigating training loads. Like it's because the workload has been so heavy, getting them off their feet for a couple of days has been great.
Yeah. Yeah, nice one. And Bart's coming to you on our as our opposition analyst or primary opposition analyst. Newcastle starting to get some players back, but not all of them. They had a horrific December with injuries in the matches. Fair to say they weren't really cut out for their Champions League. They weren't ready for their Champions League campaign, were they?
Exactly, yeah. And I think it's something Si and I and you and everyone said, I think pre-season, that Newcastle would probably struggle because they're just not set up to play the demands of playing 2 high-quality games a week. It's very different from playing, dare I say, Europa League or League Cup or FA Cup, if that's your midweek game. But the level of quality they've had to play is what PSG and they're like in midweek. That you can't really, unless you've got a squad like City, you can't really rest or you have to maintain a high level of quality. So that's shown. I mean, for this game, Trippier was out, so Livramento came in. Sorry,
Pope was out still.
Pope was out for the season. Apparently,
is he for the season? Wow,
yeah, that's what they said in commentary.
I think Wilson was out still.
Wilson was out. Almiron dropped out, and Joe Linton played in the front line. Yeah, but they only made 2 changes from the previous game, and actually Trippier and Wilson weren't listed as injured, so I don't know what's going on with them. But anyway, So this was largely the side that played the previous game they had against Forest, was it? I think when they got beat, is that right? They got beat at Forest. So, yeah, and I think you can, whether Howe was trying to be clever with Joe Linton up in the front 3.
I think they got beat at home by Notts Forest.
Yeah,
Chris Wood 2-1. Chris Wood got a hat-trick.
Chris Wood's got a hat-trick, wasn't it? So, yeah, but I think maybe don't want to give Eddie Howe too much credit, but Joe Linton in the space where Trent would have been is something he did at St James's Park against us last season.
I was going to ask though, what was the logic of having Joe Linton in that space, not Gordon?
I think to be very basic about it, and if you look at, I mean, the average position of them is that they're in a block, they're in 2 lines, and Isaac? Sorry, he's out on his own in a line. But I would have thought the really basic thing is just to hit Joe Linton with a ball, crossfield ball, and then play off him into that area where they would have perceived that there is a space going to be because Trent's going to vacate it. As we'll come on to, that didn't quite turn out that way. But that's what they tried to do against us at St James's last season, not this season.
The weird thing was as soon as they switched it. And the second, but literally as soon as they switched Gordon to the left, he created their equaliser. Anyway,
there was an interview with Eddie before, and he talked about the time in between games and how he had watched the United game and the Arsenal game, And what he did is he just modelled United. They went 4-4-1-1, and they hoped that that Gordon was tasked with man marking Trent, and we just didn't bother doing it. And they tried to block up the wide areas with Jolinton and Miley, who naturally he's just a centre mid. He just comes in from the right wing, and he's a kid. Decent physical talent, but he's not a huge guy. So I think this was just a big play by Eddie to create a really low block situation.
And it failed miserably, as we will come on to. God bless Eddie. We love you on this show, Eddie. But Hamzah, there was this was a fun game in many ways, and for us lovers of stats, it was quite strange to see expected goals being quoted mid commentary on Sky TV. I think that was a first, right? It just shows you how far we've come, doesn't it? From the dark days.
That is a positive. I think that over the past year and a half in particular, there's been an uptake in people that are sort of willing to engage with advanced stats, which is always a positive because it helps people understand the matches a bit more. But I think that the shot count was really high by half time too, and well into the Liverpool racking up the point, the XG quite significantly just early on. But it's usually something I think that people sort of look to when they're leading. When they're playing well but not leading,
it's usually an after the match descriptor, isn't it? That the mainstream TV will throw out there, won't it? To just along with the corner count and the possession count, maybe, and stuff like that. Maybe about how long? Maybe 3 years ago they started using on Match of the Day, or 4 years ago potentially.
I think it was a little. Actually, what they did, they sort of soft launched it by just keeping it in the corner. They didn't actually mention it, so it's just sort of there. So if someone wanted to see it, they could, but they didn't really mention it. But then over the past, especially the last year or so, they've been using those stats a bit better now. As I can't speak for whether XG has been used in the correct way. I saw a graphic the other day on Sky actually, where I think they put the XG and put the shots or something like that. So there needs to be with stats, you just need to be a bit careful about how you use them. But I think generally that sort of literacy is improving, which only helps for more engaged and informed debate. I think.
Absolutely. Every little helps, as some companies say. But I think it's worth reminding everybody, Barts, that when did Liverpool FC stop using expected goals? Was it 2017, 2018?
Whenever Graham and the gang came along, I suppose.
Spearman,
because they created their own in-house model, which we now know has come on to be
expected threat.
So,
and I think didn't Liverpool call it on-ball value or something?
Something like that, yeah. So they won't call it that now. It'll be something else.
No, that's StatsBomb's actually on-ball value. OBV is StatsBomb's.
But it's all wrapped up in a similar kind of thing. But they stopped using XG in-house a while ago.
Yeah.
To be frank, quite a lot of, I don't know, Si might be different, but from dealings with the course and when they have internships at the Premier League clubs, the students, they come back and say they don't really use XG a lot. So, it's out there, and I think Hamzah is right. It's sort of drip fed into this psyche, and it's still not quite used appropriately. I mean, post shot, you get people talking about that, and it confuses them even more. But I think it's coming. It's good to see it out there and being used in commentary. I think the context is just really key. Like we'll always talk about non-penalty XG, and I think that's lost a little bit. People just quote the 7 point whatever, don't they? But there's 2 penalties in that, and they're 0.76, whatever it is. So you kind of chatting to people, and they're like, well, what does that mean? And you explain. Well, I think once you explain it to them, people get it. But it's just that repetitive nature. I mean, as Si said in the chat, it's been in Match of the Day since 2017.
Yeah.
So it's a while ago, and it's still coming in. But no, you're right. We moved away from it as a club a while ago.
Yeah. And just before we move on to some more match-specific stuff for Hamzah, I mean, if we have to think about where you sit covering the game for a national publication, what do you think would be the next advanced metric to come into general parlance in the same way that XG has? Do you think would it be, say, like things like removing penalties, as Bart suggests, maybe the XG2 or XG on target for the keepers, post shot? Do you think it might be XT? Where do you think it might go next?
Well, I'm trying to use XT a bit more But some of that just depends on what's available. So at the moment, if you're going to use a publicly available XT, then you just probably got to use Mark Stats, or you've got to have your own model, or you pay a subscription to someone like StatsBomb for their on-ball value, or Opta for their own XT model. The issue there is if just one sort of outlet is using XT, then I mean, the great thing about something like FBref, right, is that anyone can access it, and that just helps because anyone can see what's going on and put some time in and sort of decipher trends for themselves. And once you become a bit more familiar with the data and you say, oh, actually, 0.2 XG per shot is super high, and you just hear that number go straight away, I understand that's a high number. Or if you go, this team is actually their conversion rate is like 6%. You go straight away, I know that's low, that's really low, that's probably something that's going to change and regress to a higher value. Once you become familiar with that, then it becomes a bit easier. So having publicly accessible information helps with that. I think already there is uptake for post-shot XG. There's a slight issue there in that post-shot XG. I mean, so Ted Knutson, I think, tweeted yesterday in response to a tweet by Michael Cayley. Michael Cayley just put a list up of the goalkeepers in the league with the highest expected post-shot XG over performance, and Vicario was top. However, Ted Knutson, StatsBomb's CEO, also posted their version, and Alisson's top for that. And what the StatsBomb model does, it takes into account the keeper positioning a bit better than the Opta one. So, for example, if a ball is squared across the goal and the keeper's out of action, it takes into account what's going there. So if a ball goes straight down the middle, that would have a low sort of value.
Tired of ads barging into your favorite news podcasts? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Just head to amazon.com/ad-free news podcasts to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime subscribers. Some shows may have ads.
On the Opta model, because it's down the middle, but because the keeper's out of the way, it's a bit different for the StatsBomb model.
So are you saying that the CEO of StatsBomb was out there saying why his stats XG model was better than everybody else's?
Yeah,
wow. With his very expensive licensed product, amazing.
Anything that puts Alisson top is usually passes your eye test. But so the point I'm trying to make, and then so there's those two examples, and then you take someone like John Harrison who does his own stuff, with goalkeeper XG, and between those three models, you see over time quite a sort of significant discrepancy. The sort of one that you really want ironed out if you want to engage with goalkeeping statistics sort of in depth. I mean, we can talk about this another time, but if you take sort of post-shot XG on penalties as well, there's a lot of values on if you look at FOTMob that are 0.99 and I think and 1 even, which just seems a bit high.
I mean, I was going to say to you when you posted this today, I mean, if you've got unless you only want 1% of your shots being as 0.99 expected, post shot, you don't want any more than that. So if you've got anything on that, please share with us your data so we can have a look at that, and maybe Phil can get one of his undergrads on it for you.
I was meant to send that along.
Yeah. Sorry, Hamzah. When you mentioned the group last night about the pen, specifically, and when the pen got saved and how it was a 0.95, a shot right down the middle of the goal doesn't get you a 0.95. A penalty right down the middle of the goal goes in 95% of the time. It's just a different way. It's a different truth.
It's probably each situation has probably got its own post shot model. Penalties will have a different.
That's the bottom line. Yeah. Keepers dive in 92% of the time. Keepers dive out of the way.
Just a question. Do you guys want to have a go on that? Which do you think will be the next advanced stat to go mainstream?
I think post-shot, Hamzah's already started to drip that in. I think it's coming in. I think XC won't go mainstream for another year or so because I think there's too much variance between the models.
Yeah.
I don't think you can readily get it. Like we do it and I work it out a little bit and Mark R Stats does a little bit, but you can't get it as readily as XG, post-shot XG. I think for me, post-shot XG and the understanding of that and the situation stuff, as Si's just said, that's an excellent point. That kind of level of education, I think, in the mainstream is what's needed next. to fully understand what you're talking about. This is a penalty. It's a different set of rules. It's not open play.
So what we really need is Understat 2.0, don't we?
Yeah.
We need some crazy Russians so they're an Understat 2.0.
Yeah, that'd be amazing,
XT model out.
But even then, no one cares about XG chain or XG build. So like Understat don't even, most people don't care about XA. So I think we're 5 years away from the next anything at the earliest. If you look at, everybody tracks American everything, culture, sport, to see what's coming next. There was big evolutions in the NBA, analytically, statistically, in terms of TV production and what's available. They still mostly only care about the same stuff as they did before. The same goes in baseball. It's that the people that like watching Paul Merson couldn't give a shit about X.
I'm just thinking from a TV perspective, it would be quite easy to do XG on target or post shot from the keeper's perspective, from doing it from inside the frame of the goal. And I think I think that's quite an understandable concept.
That might be the thing that hits the TV.
Yeah. But I think Si's actually touched on a pretty important point. I think this is all media driven. I think until the contract changes, people are happy. We were chatting about this in the group. People are fairly happy with what Sky give them. Do you know what I mean? There's not a big push to say I hate Sky, that the coverage isn't good, it's not analytical enough. Until you get that contract change, I don't think there will be a massive push to say, right, let's do this. I mean, Amazon used to do last season. They did loads of live stats in the game, and that went this season because people just didn't use it, and then Amazon has now pulled out. So I just think it's a lot of it is down to, for me, who owns that contract. At the moment, Sky own the contract. People are happy with that product. They're just going to carry rolling it out.
Yeah.
If you see the American sports have been taken, the ones that have been hijacked by streamers. So baseball is now on the random games of baseball is now on Prime or on Apple, and they both try to add different types of stats. And the only one that that's stuck that they push is basically win probability added. So it's because it aligns with betting.
Yeah.
Like live betting. So
it's okay.
At this point of the game, this team is more likely to have won, to win. And so it's all down to betting.
Interesting. Anyway, let's talk about, that's a nice little that's a nice little segue. But we'll I'll just, before we start to talk about the match, I'm going to do, Rhodesy very kindly did us a match summary because I couldn't let another show go by with me murdering a match summary in Rhodes's absence. So just imagine this in a deep Yorkshire brogue instead. So 34 shots equaled our highest of the season and anyone else this season, which was the game against Man United recently. So we got the two highest shot totals in a match this season. 29 shot difference. So we had 34, Newcastle had 5. That's the second best we've ever had behind a game. 30 we had against Hull City, Burnley and Man United in 2018-19. That was Jose Mourinho's last match for Man United when we had a plus 30 shot difference in that match. We had 14 shots on target. That's the joint highest, third highest under Klopp, just behind 15 against Sunderland and 17 against Watford in 2016-17. Now, is that the game we drew at Watford or the game we won? I can't remember. Or the 5-0. I'm presuming it's the 5-0. 25 shots in the box. That's the best we've ever had in the Klopp. 3 clear of the previous best of 22, which we've managed 3 times before. And 21 shots in the box difference. That's also the highest we've got by 3. 9 big chances. So 9 big chances. We finally had our revenge for Napoli away last year when we conceded 9, which was our worst ever under Klopp. Actually worst ever at Liverpool, I think, generally. 9. We had 9 in the Rodgers season away at Spurs, which was Antonio Villas-Boas's last match in charge for Spurs, where we had 9 big chances. And under Klopp, we'd had 8, twice against Arsenal, which was fun, including the 2-2 last season. And against Leeds, in the 6-0 against Leeds, we also had 8 big chances. And taking out the pens, there was obviously, we're talking about the XG on Sky, saying it's the record XG for Opta since 2010. in a match in the Premier League. We always focus on the non-penalty in in this show. 5.25 non-penalty XG is by far the highest we've had, beating 4.4, which was the 6-0 against Leeds in February 2022. And 67 touches in the box is the highest we've ever had, again under Klopp, edging 66 against Leicester, when we lost 1-0. That was 3 seasons ago. We lost 1-0 at Leicester. I think Mo Salah missed a penalty and a load of other big chances. And there was a game actually over Christmas where Arsenal got Barts, did you see this? But Arsenal got 77, 78 touches in the box against West Ham.
Yeah, I thought it's one of the ones that got. Yeah, West Ham would have thought that's the one they were counting in the box.
I'm sure they got like 70. It was the record. I think it was the record ever Opta penalty box touches Arsenal had, and they lost. What was the final score in that West Ham game?
2-0.
2-0.
Yeah,
it's an absolute classic.
Another out of play thing, another ball out of play thing.
Yeah, didn't they have about 5 XG as well?
Yeah, I'm just looking down now for you.
Yeah.
West Ham. There you go. They had. Blimey, can't get all the stats up. This is good radio. They had 2 points. No, they only had 2.7 XG. Yeah, not as high as I thought. Yeah, 2.7 XG. 5 big chances, all missed. 8 on target, 30 shots.
Wow, what a shame, eh, Barts? What a shame.
What a shame. I mean, it's really annoying when you got Arsenal fans living there. You're just really bad.
I bet after that Christmas, they've gone very, very quiet all of a sudden.
Oh, they were. I mean, to be fair to them, I think I told you in the group, they were very nice about the game, the fact that their player played basketball in the box and we should have had a penalty. So they were quite nice after that game, but then they went really quiet for the following 2 games. So, yeah.
Yeah. And in this game, some other ones, the stats, it was 63% possession for us. So an absolute historic in many ways Premier League match. And I come to you, Hamzah, just quickly to start off with. I mean, to be fair to Newcastle, they did keep it close for the first 10 minutes.
Yeah, but I don't know how much weight you can assign to the first 10 minutes and you can see so much later on. But even then, in that first 10, there were signs of, in particular, Diaz looked very, very sharp, which is a welcome sort of thing to see. He attempted 2 dribbles early on, I think, in the first 20. One was very nicely timed with Curtis Jones, because what they did... Curtis was infield and he sort of pulled out to the left, which dragged the player and allowed Diaz to drive inside, and then later on he drove to get the penalty. The first few minutes were a little sort of the first minute, as often is the case, like a little bouncy bouncing around, but then after, I think we already had our first shot within the second minute.
To be honest, Trent almost had one.
Yeah, that's the one that was deflected.
Deflected. It only went about an inch wide of the post.
Yeah, so I wouldn't assign too much to that first 10. But yeah,
I was being nice. It's Chris, it's New Year. We can't be too mean straight away. But yeah, Si, what did you see in those early exchanges that you liked? Because you were all over this match, it's fair to say. Right from a very early stage, you were really engaged in this match.
Yeah, we were spread. So we were using the whole width of the pitch. We had basically as a counter to their 2 flat banks, we had like 4 different cul-de-sacs set up for the counter press. As soon as we forced the pass, it got turned over. We already had 3 guys there to go and win it straight back. It was incessant. We were not letting them into our half at all. They had 4 touches in our half in the first 10 minutes. They only had 7 touches in our half in the first 16 minutes. So we were totally dominant, and we had a proactive, aggressive, dribbling Diaz, which was really nice to see. It looked like the Mane version of Diaz when he first arrived. We got Darwin like really high up the pitch, central, and we were using like as a pincer move. We were using Mo like wide, 10 yards deep, but right on the touchline to play through Mo and then totally changed the angle of attack, and he was the one that was creating into the box. And we were making runs around that. So we constantly had pressing, we constantly had third man runners into and beyond the box. They were spinning, their heads were spinning. They had no idea what to do to cope.
So we spent a long time last season, too many pods talking about pressing was no good. Pressing was now, I think a number of times we said it's now more of a cost than it is of a benefit because we were so bad at it and it was leaving us so vulnerable.
It was chasing, not pressing. Yeah.
Yeah. So Jurgen was ecstatic about the counter-pressing post-match. It's such a shame that we don't have our pressing data anymore for Rosie and Gags' new jobs, unfortunately. But if we had the pressing data, what might we be talking about? Because this did look quite old school performance. This was like proper heavy metal, right?
It comes about from two things: spacing and timing of passes. So the timing of passes were while we had the good spacing. So if you lose possession, we were there to go win it back straight away. But I'm sure I've talked about this before. I talk about it all the time in my coaching. Every player, what's next? You get the ball, make a pass, what's next? All of our players knew what the plan was next, and they were making that. It was a burst. So whether they made an inside-out run, 5 meters, but they then knew what the next maneuver for them to be doing would be, so that they would then go sprint off in a different direction. And a pass might come, it might not. The pass might go elsewhere. But it was all super fast, super intense, with 1 or 2 touches at most from whoever was in possession. And that's the big difference for us. Instead of just recycling slow and deep amongst the defenders, when teams back off and allow us to our defence to have the ball, we have been languid and just allowed them to do it. And we didn't try to impose ourselves, but we were punching the balls through the lines, through each phase, 5 meter passes, really hard, trusting each other because they're all technically great, but everybody was making really good angles to receive possession.
Yeah. Now, Barts, I mean, we've always talked about one of the important things we needed to do is compress that pitch. We compress the pitch and allows us the tight spaces where we can work in transition and counter pressing, yeah. And we saw this. We really, I mean, some of your data viz that you've done on this, on our locations and what we did, shows you, literally, the 2 centre backs were on the edge of the centre circle, and then all, Trent, Gomez, and Endo were all inside the other side of the centre circle in the Newcastle half.
Yeah, I think I said to you, I said in Discord today, I think this is the best, it goes along with what Si was saying, the best spacing, the best shape, the best amount of connections I've seen all season. There's triangles all over the pitch. I think we've also said consistently on this pod about it doesn't necessarily matter about who's in the space, but we need to occupy the space to get the synchronicity to work. And you can see that. And the other pleasing thing for me is that the connections are every department of the team are connected. So there is a vertical passing from the back to front, Van Dijk into Diaz or Van Dijk to Salah. There's a Canate into the front. Then there's the midfielders, like you said, Endo, Gomez and Trent occupying that sort of secondary line. They have also got vertical, they've got horizontal. And then you've got the 2 8 players operating in the half space channels of Dom and Jones, connecting at will in a myriad of triangles between the 3 players around them. With Jones, you had Endo, Gomez and Diaz. With Dom, you had Endo, Trent and Salah. And they're all still connected with Nunes as well. Not as high volume as needed, but that was left to Salah and Diaz to provide good volume into Diaz, which is why he was involved in a lot of the positive things we did. So I think the positivity, to go back to answer your point about what with the pressings, I would suggest, it's not a big shout, I would suggest both our 8s would be top pressers because of the way that if you look at the zones maps on the touches, so where they're picking it up, they're in the crux of the connections in the right and left zones, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
So we form this horseshoe. So that's on the ball because we were counter pressing that high to then get possession higher up. that I don't think that would be too dissimilar if I ran that with data for the off the ball picture as well. So I think Curtis and Dom would have been fairly near the top certainly in terms of counter pressing, and I would have expected us to have some low value chains, maybe 3-4s, because we were winning it quite successfully. The thing to note, and you've put in the chat, is that it's quite interesting. We stopped them to a large part passing between their two centre halves.
Yeah.
So the white line indicates a low passing accuracy between players, and there was a white line between Newcastle's two centre halves, which meant they had to go vertically into Bruno. I think that is, who's in the halfway line. Yeah. So we often talk about controlling the way the opposition play. So we wanted them to play in these areas, and we stopped that easy ball for the centre half to make to his partner. So therefore, he had to go wide, or we had to go vertically.
Yeah, and I think Guimaraes would have easily been the most targeted player.
Oh, for sure, 100%. And also, I think Byrne would have been as well, given his situation. He's not the quickest. He's a centre half playing left back. So they would have been. I would have expected them to be the two targeted if we got the data.
Yeah,
their long ball. It's the other thing about them is that Eddie's a prick and really dumb. And
I thought it was his assistant. I saw that it was his assistant who was the prick.
Well, I actually like him. He's nice, but he chooses that assistant. So you are what you are. But Dim, let's say, how many times have we played Bournemouth and gone, Bournemouth basically set up like tackle dummies for us? They do the exact thing that we want to practice our press against. Yeah. And they did exactly this for the first 15 minutes. That they had 52% of their touches in their deepest third.
Opportunity knocks.
And they were just trying to pass the ball around with the goalie and the centre backs. The goalie's terrible.
Yeah,
yeah. And with his feet, like reputedly, everybody knows this. It was insane way to practice. The Newcastle have a long ball rate of 9.6. In this game, it was 10.1. What are you doing? You don't have your good players. Thank you.
Perfect. Hamzah, this is the first time you've really had the chance to come on and to Under Pressure and talk about pressing. You've obviously listened to a lot of stuff we used to, and the data we used to collect. What did you think the biggest takeaways were from this match, and how we've gone back to the future almost here?
I think it might actually be worth just mentioning Newcastle's pressing as well, because I thought that was really poor. It actually allowed Liverpool to play through it. As in, if there's an example of what good pressing looks like, it would be Liverpool's, and what bad pressing looks like, I'd look at Newcastle's. Because one thing, so when Newcastle sat back, especially in the opening 10, it was just Liverpool had shots and worked it really well, but there's a little bit of, they're sitting back. We know how this may play out. But what Liverpool did quite well is when they went back to Alisson or Van Dijk or Konate, Newcastle sort of pressed up in a really limp way. So Isak might lead at some points. And the way that we talk about horizontal compactness all the time, as in if you're in the box, the distance between fullback to fullback, making sure that's tight and compact. Mm-hmm. But the distance between centre-back and striker is just as, if not actually more important.
Yeah.
And when Newcastle were pressing, the space between their deepest player and their most forward and their furthest forward player was quite great. And the spaces in between were also quite significant as well. So Liverpool could play through really easily and access their forwards on the half turn and and create transitions of their own through that mechanism. And that was, you see the pass that Curtis Jones makes towards Darwin Nunez, and then Diaz scores, but Nunez is offside. That was an example of just precisely that, where a team isn't pressing particularly well, and that's the sort of thing that may sort of spark some bad memories from last season, although I don't think it ever got that bad for us. But as in, it was very easy to play through in that manner against such a weak press.
I'm just so gutted that Curtis won't get that to register as a hockey assist. It was just such a glorious ball.
Well, it should have just been an assist, right? But we'll talk about that later. But as in, so there's that example. Then there's there's a goal that comes just like that, again playing in generating a transition ourselves by playing deep and then playing quickly through the lines. So that would be so I think as good as Liverpool's press was and performance was, Newcastle's press was pathetically limp. And remember the personnel as well. As often, Simon often talks about how it's really important to have fast, strong players, especially at the back. Make sure that you've got a really rapid back four, and Liverpool do. And Newcastle didn't. Livramento is quick, but Dan Burn, Botman and Cher aren't like matchups for Diaz, Salah, and Nunez. Even if Salah is a little bit slower than he was.
I mean, Joe Gomez was low key excellent in this match, wasn't he? With his 1v1s defending.
I think low key is unfair. I think he
just because I mean there were so many other good performances elsewhere. Yeah, what I mean is because Salah will get the headlines and Curtis Jones and stuff, but what I mean, that's what I meant, like low key. Sorry,
it's with Gomez. It's also coming to the point where his stats are actually starting to look like sort of near best in the league. If you look at his aerial duel win rate as well, I think he is going at 1 second. 80% this season. I think Konate's around 67. So Konate has the worst of the three sort of centre backs.
And that's not a bad 67 for your third best. It's not bad.
He played fullback, so he's not playing against a big, strong striker. But he does have a big advantage.
That's a bonus, though, Si. If you can get a guy who doesn't limit the team and he can still go out there and win 80% of his aerials, that's a good thing. That's a really good thing.
Yeah, for sure. All I'm saying is it's not comparable to other centre backs. It's much more comparable to Dan.
Well, and I don't think we ever mentioned this is why people need to look at Mark Arstat's ELO for aerials, because he does a chest rate in the ELO system. So he just compares each, no matter how good you are or bad you are on your aerial win rate, you always get compared directly against the person you duel against, and then you adjust accordingly. So yeah, that's probably the best model on the internet for aerial duels. But anyway, that's enough nerdery.
Sorry, you asked me about Liverpool's pressing, and
yes, please.
Sorry, I think I'll just go to what Klopp said after the match with him, that Jones is now setting the level for counter pressing, and if you look at the intensity that he showed when Liverpool lost the ball, or in moments of potential transition, and how quick he was to seize those and immediately turn them into advantageous ones, because Newcastle were at Anfield for one purpose: to sit back and counterattack effectively. That was the whole plan. So in those moments of the counter press is critical to stopping Newcastle breaking, and also to create opportunities where, as they decide to break from their defensive shape, just in those moments where the fullbacks go, all right, we're about to move forward, Guimaraes gets his head up, tries to look forward, Gordon breaks and Isak breaks. That's the moment where you want to steal the ball and suddenly everyone is out of position, and you've got Diaz, Salah and Nunez who can break freely. And that's what Jones did, and he was excellent in that role. I think he paired very well with Endo as well in doing that.
Just like the Arsenal game, outstanding in that game as well. But we talked a lot about Curtis after we switched to WM last spring against Arsenal. And even then, when we had the data, then we were saying that him and Jota were the two key players in terms of our off-ball work. And the return of the production we saw in the spring, it was largely down to those two players. They were just absolutely, with this compressed space, the WM, more bodies in there, they just thrived.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think just to back up what Hamzah said, Curtis was involved in 10 duels, both ground and aerially, and only lost 3. And Newcastle, again, only competed for 3 duels in our defensive third, which gives you an indication of how much appetite they had to go forward. But no, I think CJ's both on and off the ball in this period has really come to light. His duel rate's been good. He's both aerially and on the ground. His passing's always been a good facet of his, but I think it's up in what's his pass rate for this one? I can't remember this now.
It's always it was just below 90. I think it was 88.
Just below 87.7. So
which just in a big game, it's still a fantastic number.
Fantastic, considering he's in a heightened position. Do you know what I mean? And we're asking him to take those risks. And so I'll come on to it, a possession control coming up, but I just think he's the hub of it. We spoke about, remember the Palace pod we did where the left side just wasn't functioning. And actually, to be fair, we've only really changed one player.
Well, no, it was Tsimikas, Grav.
But I mean,
Diaz,
you've actually potentially lost a bit of the attacking output by not having a left-footed left-back, right? I mean, Gomez had a great game, but in terms of the ability to go down the line and put a ball in, Gomez isn't going to do that. He's going to do other things. So you've actually changed that model. But in terms of the linking with Diaz to bring Diaz alive, I would suggest the last two performances from Diaz have been exceptionally better night and day from the previous two. And maybe some of that is the quality of ball that CJ is enabling to move into those areas. I think CJ is very good at carrying, moving it, and then putting it into areas where players can then perform at their best. That ball that Hamzah said is the hockey assist, for me, is a classic CJ kind of movement to do, because he's not the person that delivers the assist, but he looks at assesses the space and says, I need to put the ball there so that player can do his job. And I think we've missed that a large parts of the game, and he's probably learned a lot of that. Well, would hope he's learned some of that from having Thiago, who's very good at that as well, managing the space. But no, I think CJ's been becoming that one of those leaders, if you like, of this charge we seem to be on as a team. But certainly our attacking output for me has improved markedly since he's returned to the starting 11, like it did, as you said, at the back end of last season.
Si, there's no bigger fan of Curtis Jones in the world, actually, I don't think, than you. He was absolutely tremendous again.
It was neat. The beauty of him is he is a 6'2", thinks he's David Silva, and he's practiced to be David Silva his whole life. So he's incredibly comfortable in tight situations. He has been in our system since Klopp arrived. So the fundamental principles of Klopp's way of working is how he learned to read and write football movement. So bit by bit, he's pieced this together. So he knows how a system works. He knows as I said, fundamental principles of said system, the minimum standards of how a team should set up and should work, and how it interchanges, and how patterns work, and which patterns are necessary to our play. And he's bit by bit being allowed to demonstrate that mastery. And it's a modern, I think it's a modern skill set that we haven't always valued in football. But you can see as David Silva got aged and he moved back from the front line into midfield, his assists and stuff went down, but he became much more like the tiki-taka Xavi and older Iniesta of connecting. But the way he connects is to connect pattern to pattern rather than just player to player. And they can dictate how sequences occur at what times. And the way CJ picks and chooses how long to retain possession, which direction to turn to engage the most number of opposition players to press him, so he can then release the ball. That's the stuff you can't count. And he doesn't lose the ball. And he wins it back like he runs around like a lunatic these days, which is not something natural to him.
You're saying David Silva, but I mean, David Silva never had physicality, athleticism, and pace.
He's 6'2". Yeah, he was.
And this is like David Silva, if you liked heavy metal. He's had this fantastic combination, like you said, and he very rarely gives the ball away. It's just a perfect blend.
Yeah, it's a very, very modern footballer, and I think he's taken. At the same time as it's taken a while for fans to appreciate it, because it's not the thing that you get that you see on TikTok. I think he has grown into understanding it himself. But it wouldn't surprise me if he became this incarnation of Klopp's sides, like Kagawa. Or I don't mean that in a positional sense. I just mean in how it made the team work.
Yeah.
So he's like the metronome.
Yes, he's involved, right? Should we talk about possession control now? Because this was something that I'd never seen before on the internet before you created it. I think about 3 seasons ago. And do you just want to give everybody an overview of what possession control is?
Ostensibly, it's the number of a person's touches they won or lost. That's it. So it adds up every time they have possession of the ball, how they got possession of the ball by winning it by getting their team possession, and then against how many times they lose their team possession. So that's it. There are a bunch of different categories and statistics I add into this, but that's ostensibly how it works. And the more we look at it, you can kind of weight it against what we would talk about earlier, expected threat or XG chain or progressive passes per touch. I look at progressive meters per touch. So you can see how attacking, how much risk a player is willing to take, a midfielder in particular. So if you can compare them against all midfielders in the country, the better defensive sixes, the better in possession defensive sixes tend to be higher in possession control because they win a greater percentage of their possession, and then they give the ball 4 yards away. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Whereas a streaky attacking Callum Hudson-Odoi is going to lose the ball quite a lot because he takes lots of risks and dribbles a lot, so he'll lose the ball there, and he doesn't try really hard to get the ball back. So he'll have a really low negative possession control, and a low negative possession control is 10 is really you're not comfortable with that. And if it gets into the 20s, you better be giving your team a lot of expected threat.
And if you play deeper in the pitch, you don't really want to be negative at all. If you play primarily in your own half, you have a really deep six, whereas if you play in the middle third, anything regarding about -1 to -3 is in the good range. Would you say, Sammy?
Yeah, I'd say that.
And if you're more like a James Maddison, who's you're trying to create, then you can tolerate, -10 to -15 if you get in the creativity on the flip side.
Yeah. Exactly that.
So,
but you have to weight that against, obviously, not just against these numbers, but against the timing. So they have to be smart enough to know when they're going to take these risks, and the team have to be set behind them so that they don't turn that into big transition moments against you.
Yeah.
So we can't count those. But
I did ask you to plot every player in the league with preparation for this pod, just to see how high Curtis was ranking. Because you said, obviously, Rodri would be the standout. Because he has over 100 touches per game and doesn't really lose possession that much. And then
and he's the best in the world.
Yeah, in his position. And it's fair to say that Curtis is pretty damn high in this chart. There's a few surprising. Philip Billing at Bournemouth, for example, he's a real standout. The young lad at Brighton, the replacement Casido, surprise there, Brighton scouting Belabor. He looks like one to keep an eye on. The two Everton lads potentially a surprise there, Si, high up on the chart.
This is because we weighted touches with possession control. If we done, I have it for our squad, and I've done it for midfielders. If we weighted progressive meters per touch against it, then all of those lads you talk about drop away.
Right. Okay.
So if we, I'll put it in the group later. But progressive meters per touch, so that risk. Then you have
against your control.
Yeah, he's the third best in the country.
Yeah. So he's got that creativity, but also without losing the ball. And on the rare occasions we do lose the ball, he's a fucking demon at the counter-pressing as well.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the ideal modern footballer in that respect, isn't it?
Exactly. And as is Rodri is the perfect modern six.
Yes. Anyway, we do have to talk about other players now, other than Curtis Jones.
And the game.
Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about one big moment. Let's talk about one big moment which encapsulates some nice counter-pressing. And that was the first penalty. But because on this one, Diaz, first of all, runs into a bit of a blind alley, doesn't he, in field? But we got three players there to counter-press immediately. Mm-hmm. I think Endo wins it. I think Endo comes away with Endo, Jones, and maybe Diaz himself. And then all of a sudden, we've got a 4-on-4, and Diaz is running at them in the box.
And this is where Diaz does his thing, doesn't he? He just myriads dribbles at speed into the box, take it into wherever he wants to go, ends up in the 6-yard box, and someone clips him and he goes down for a penalty. But I think this is exactly what Klopp wanted. It was a trap, if you like. We counter-pressed well, and then we released the runner we had, who's excellent at that opportunity, and he drove in. And
but that wasn't the thing that hasn't been the Si always used to talk about. When we weren't in a position, we weren't ready. The whole team last season wasn't ready when we did lose the ball. We were completely out of position. We were uncomfortable, but this season, we lost it there. Diaz lost it. He ran into a good challenge, but we were there, and it was almost like an opportunity for us.
Yeah, I think that's very true. We were set up better. I think we were also. I think Si spoke about it in the preamble, saying that we're just better set up to understand when someone goes there, they need to be there to make sure we're not counted on our transition line against us. And I think this is 20 games into a season, and I keep saying we looked a lot more synced in doing that. I mean, the only thing I have with this, I'm not sure Diaz can't just finish it anyway. But anyway, there you go. But no, I thought it was a good example of us creating, and then Mo obviously has, as we've already discussed, took a high percentage chance, and the keeper just got lucky and saved it.
Hamzah, you were witness to Newcastle fans for some reason on Twitter last night complaining about 2 penalties in a game they conceded over 7 XG, and one of the penalties they didn't even concede from, which was this one. It was a pretty remarkable double miss, wasn't it, from us?
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mac boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
Before we just jump into that, and I think so when Diaz makes that run, I mentioned earlier, Jones does that thing where he peels off to create the space infield so he can run. And interestingly, Anthony Taylor Diaz rides the first challenge, and Anthony Taylor sort of plays advantage, and he takes like 3 steps more, and then he gets tackled, and he doesn't give the foul. Which I guess we can come back to later on the Joe Linton thing. But yeah, then the counter press happens, and Endo's quite smart in that he uses Taylor as a sort of screen, so he appears from behind. No, I'm totally serious. As in, the Newcastle player that picks up the ball just sort of looks up and out, and behind Taylor's yellow jersey appears Endo, and snap is onto the ball, and then Liverpool break. A bit of a delay before the penalty, which never seems to help. But yeah, it was a good save. I think Si, I don't know if this bit was on the start of the pod, but he's hit it really hard. He's hit it centrally. Often it goes in, just didn't. But yeah,
it was in the top half of the net, which is usually the thing that differentiates these things as well.
As Salah explained though in his post-match interview. Not just that. What he actually said was the goalkeeping coach had tried to pass a message to Dubravka, and that just sort of messed with his head a little. He thought, "Oh, I know what I'm going to do," and he changed his mind. And anyone that's taken a penalty knows that if you change your mind just before the penalty or mid-penalty, that is usually the moment at which you've missed your penalty. And then when it comes to the second penalty, Salah said later in the post-match interview, he just went, okay, I know what I practice. I'm sticking to my side, and I'll just place it there. But yeah, but that always happens. That often happens.
So what you're saying is it wasn't all to do with the boots then?
We can say it's all to do with the boots, Salah's magic boots. I think someone mentioned that he's the same size as Darwin Nunez, so I'm sure he can leave a nice pair.
It's an enduring image, I'll tell you what. Okay. So I don't know. You feeling the worst at that point? We just had a disallowed goal. The pen missed. The Trent. Oh, we didn't even mention the Trent miss there, Hamzah. I mean, of all the players,
that was it was quite bad. But then I think barely a minute later, Diaz was on the break again, running into the box, and then Keds had another shot. To me at this point, there wasn't a real sort of feel of nervousness. It was just, a penalty has been missed, rather than that penalty is going to bite the team in the backside afterwards. The process still felt good. The means at which Liverpool were able to open up those opportunities felt pretty easy. So yeah, at this point, I don't think there was that sort of nervous. And I think the crowd also believed that too. There wasn't any sort of murmurings of we've wasted our one good opportunity here. I think there was an expectation that more would come.
What about after the Newcastle disallowed goal, 37 minutes, because we just missed another big chance, Nunez again. And then the most marginal of offside calls stops it from being 0-1.
It was at the same time, Liverpool also had their own offside call, as we covered earlier, the Nunez one. That was... Did Konate play the line on that one? I'm just getting it up right now. Here we go. It was Konate that they were checking. But as we sort of discussed earlier, this was the Newcastle game plan, as in try and pick through a moment to break. And I think this one started deep. I think the Curtis tried to intercept the ball, and Gordon just beat into it and did a sort of loop infield, then played it out wide, and then from there. Oh, actually, no. There's the little detail was actually Van Dijk moved up around 30 seconds before this, and he actually tried to. I think as in his role as captain, actually tried to encourage the team to press further and higher. So just 30 seconds before this event, actually, you see him like in the number 10 position, trying to encourage the team to press further and higher and more aggressively. And then all that sort of stuff transpires as he's coming back. But that didn't quite help because Isak played in whoever it was on the right side who then crossed it over. But I think that was more so that the Van Dijk thing was actually more so about trying to raise the level more after that penalty miss and make sure that the team just really punished Newcastle and made sure that there were no mistakes for them to take. But I wasn't too worried. But I think I've gone into a bit more detail than needed.
No worries, Hamzah. I mean, one man who wasn't worried, was perfectly relaxed, obviously, was Simon Brundish. So, where were you sitting in the stadium last night?
Where was I last night?
Well, I thought you were in the stadium for it last night.
No, outside.
All right. I was going to ask, what angle did you have of the Trent shot off when he hit the woodwork on 39 minutes? Would that have been the greatest goal in history?
It would have been very funny. We were talking in the group, and I think he's in this headspace right now where he's trying to be the most expansive version of this thing that he has now discovered he can.
He has been fucking good in the last half dozen games. Absolutely unreal good.
But he's definitely going towards being the next Gareth Bale.
Well, I can live with that.
He is done being a defender right now.
I can live with him being the next Gareth Bale.
Great. I'd sign me up. We just better make allowances for it in the squad. But like the rebound from the pen, he should have just squared it to one of the three lads who were totally unmarked.
It's just one of those ones that was looping and wouldn't sit, wasn't it? It just looped and looped and looped, and
But the thing that he's doing right now, he's going for the most spectacular version.
Yeah.
Which, fair enough, because technically he can do all those things and it's great fun. And as long as we're winning, I don't care why he's experimenting with this stuff. It would have been a sexy goal if he'd have scored it.
Yeah. But you were much more relaxed than us. 18 shots to 1 at half time, despite the missed chances, the Newcastle. Did you get any jitters from that Newcastle?
We were absolutely battering them. we've talked about this many times, that I think there are a bunch of teams in the league who are a bit of a myth, and Newcastle are one of them. And they're living off a bit of a legacy from the run of mythdom they had last season. Even they're kind of wank. I fully expected us to win by 3, and sadly they skanked 2 goals, so I was a bit wrong. But my faith that the process that was happening on the pitch was the best version of this Klopp side we have seen. It felt like when it felt like when Naby got dropped into midfield, or then there was a moment 2 seasons ago, I don't know, where Thiago suddenly had a run, and then everything just changed.
Mm.
And this is what we have in this game. And to be fair, it probably started in the Caribou. Enough rotation probably caused enough regular interactions between the midfield so that their timing and synchronization started to work, and it's looked better. Even against Burnley, I thought we were going to absolutely whack them because our process was better than everybody else seemed to think.
Yeah, maybe you were confident. You did like our process more than me and Barts did anyway, it's for sure.
Yeah, that's all. And I think this might be us now, which will be absolutely tremendous if we can manage to do this without having the best player on the planet on the pitch.
Yeah. But the only thing I was in my back of my mind was that I'd seen this movie once before this season at Luton, where we'd had, I think, 6 big chances, 4 XG, just under 4 XG, and we had a 1-1 draw. And I was thinking, this looks spookily familiar, and we've missed a pen. Where were you on this journey of emotions?
I felt more positive than you in this one. I did, because I thought we were curating. I mean, even that period from 15 through to half time, we had like 13 shots.
Yeah,
that's all big chances. We had 4 on target. You know, you had an average XG per shot of over 50 at 0.15. You know, when you look back at it, Si's probably very, very comfortable to sit where he is. But I also think, as I said, I think we've clicked into a gear. If this is how we're going to be going forward and we can make it work, I think that Burnley might be a bit of a blueprint of how we make it work without Mo. Then yeah, this could be a really exciting period for us. But no, at the time, I know what you mean. You miss a penalty, like the Leicester away game you spoke about in the intro. In one of the title charging seasons, where Mo misses a penalty, he comes back, just come back from AFCON, didn't he? Missed a penalty. We actually battered them, and they scored with basically their only chance and lose the game. And I'm like, oh, man, it's hellish weather. You could see the ball started to keep up on the turf a little bit with the water. Well, not quite waterlogged, but it wasn't running as well as it could have done. Like Dom's pass, he could have threaded in Diaz, I think, in the latter part of the first half, and it got caught up.
Literally caught up in standing water.
So there was an element I was like, because for all of that first 50, I mean, Trent should have scored in the first 2 minutes. I agree with Si with that penalty. I don't know what he's trying to do there. Just square it. There's 3 players unmarked. Play the percentages. I'll always say that about every player. There was an element of me going, how are we not winning this at half time? But I said, when I rewatched it, I smacked myself and said, well, we weren't worried. It was just the process was clearly there. We were generating chances. We were rapid. When we scored 2 goals, pretty much exactly the same as we'll come on to in the second half.
Yeah, but what I was thinking about was Luton we'd had exactly the same. We created so many chances against Luton.
Yeah.
And then we go 1-0 down and we only equalise in, 4th minute of stoppage time.
Did we create that many chances, or did we just have that many shots? That's where I don't think you're being the.
I thought we had 6 big chances against
Darth in this.
No, I thought we had 6 big chances against Luton. That's all.
Against Luton, I'll look it up. I know we had the big one we chatted about.
Set piece chances.
All right, and Nunes
open play was the big chance.
Yeah.
That's something that did worry me about some of the earlier ones we were missing. I was like, oh, cannot one of these just go in? But no, on a rewatch is often great without the emotion. You shouldn't have worried, really. We were fine.
Si, do you want to say anything about Nunes before we move on?
In fairness to him,
8 shots.
He shoots too much, but he didn't at a very good time, which is great. And he played a significant role in that, like big goal. He is second in the team in big assists, which is awesome. I don't think his failure to score 3 big chances, which is huge in this game because he's
1.7 xG,
monster.
8 shots, 2.2 on target, 2.2 xG on target.
I don't think it's the same as the other games. I think he took decent shots. If we took this game as a standalone, he was just a bit unlucky with a keeper making saves.
Yeah.
And he probably got he's on the end of bad maths in the 2 of the big chances that were called big chances because they were rapid. One was rapid at knee height. It was really hard adjustment to get that. And the other one was point blank and the keeper was right in his way. So in a standalone game, he was really unlucky. We sadly had the context of 18 months.
Yeah. So we talk about the process being really, really good. Darwin's obviously a part of that process, right?
Yeah.
I guess the biggest thing he does is he occupies at least 2 defenders at all times, pretty much.
And he also does the thing that Hamzah was talking about. He separates the defense from the attack, the opposition's defense from the attack. They're terrified. He's running in behind. Yeah. Most of the time, he's stood offside. But
Newcastle more than most as well because of what he did to them at the return fixture. So.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to be terrified. But my point, even by facetiously talking about how offside he is, because he's going to break the offside record this year, is that whilst he is making the running behind, even if they're smartly pressing, like stepping out to catch him offside, he's still in their head. He's still a distraction to them to whatever else is going on the pitch. So he's still causing space for the midfielders, for the other forwards. He what's the right word? He focuses the attention of more than one opposition player at any one time in a way that Gakpo doesn't.
Yeah, for sure. Hamzah, you are both considered. It's part of your job to be considered. Where do you stand on the whole Darwin Núñez curate's egg of a problem?
Well, we've got to get that quote out from
Ian Graham.
Ian Graham, yeah. Let me just get it up. The point that Ian Graham makes is that it's not specifically about Núñez, but it's
a general point about when you one attribute which is really, really valuable.
So I'll read the quote in its entirety. So from here, people don't like the theory that the best players win the game, Graham said. People love to mystify that that there has to be some magic about football that's not easy to measure. A scout or coach would say, "Why do we like this forward?" His team would respond, "He takes loads of really good shots." The scout or coach would counter, "Yeah, but does he drive inside enough? Does he bring enough teammates into play?" But we're playing them up front. He takes loads of good quality shots. There's literally nothing else to say. All other arguments, they're second order effects compared to this. But people love to mystify and bring more and more factors into play. A use of the data is just to say, this is the important thing, and we might be wrong about it. We sometimes are wrong, but you really have to come up with some really good arguments against this one really important thing. And that's from Ian Graham speaking to Ryan O'Hanlon in ESPN. Ian Graham also spoke to Rory Smith in an interview for his newsletter as well. So if anyone hasn't read either of those pieces, read those. They're very good. The point being here, though, is that what Darwin Núñez does is he takes a lot of good shots from high value positions. So he's getting loads of XG. And that in itself is enormously valuable because what we're looking for in football is goals. And usually the football is a low scoring sport. So if you score one goal, that is enormously valuable. That's the whole idea behind why City are willing to sacrifice essentially play with one few outfielder because they have Haaland who takes like 20 touches a match because he scores goals. That's the whole sort of idea there. If a guy scores goals, it's immensely valuable and it outweighs most other considerations. If it's someone who's good with possession, is a touch nice, can they dribble, all cool, right? And all features of a system, but the primary function of the system is to score goals and not concede goals, and that's what Nunez is meant to do, right? But what I will say in Nunez's defense, even though he's not converting as many goals as he should, is that point that Simon just touched on, and what Klopp mentioned after the match, is that what Nunez does is he occupies players just by sheer presence, by his physicality. His gravity brings players towards him. So not only does he create shots and have lots of shots, his positioning itself also creates opportunities for teammates as well. Yeah. Diaz, for example, that again is a discussion to be had about how Diaz builds his relationship with Nunez. But if you've got a player like Nunez, you have more space to run into because he attracts centre-backs and defenders. Likewise, Salah. Salah now has the opportunity where teams may not double up on him because they know there's a really quick, strong guy in the box that's going to get shots away. And they're also wary that Salah at any sort of point can just flick a ball around the corner and find him because he's quick and strong. But the big issue is this underperformance. So like maybe a 0.5 XG chance doesn't quite translate to him as a 0.5 at the moment. And in fact, that chance that he had early on was 0.52, right? The one that you mentioned. I thought,
edge of the 6-yard box.
I personally, on first glance, as I said, I thought it was a bit high, but on reflection, I think it's probably about right. Although maybe you took the wrong sort of technique. Trying to glance at a ball that's coming across you is a lot harder than just trying to stroke against it. So if you went for the near post, that might have been a bit more sort of productive. But yeah, to come back to the main thing, it's a bit of a problem that he's not converting his chances, and that seems to be eating into the opportunity that other players have to get into scoring opportunities. Often we've seen.
So can I bring in the professor here? Here, because obviously you were very clear. You potentially could have been working with Ian Graham at one point if things had gone a different path, Barts. I don't know if it was the same level you were coming in above your what, but if Ian had said that to you, what would have your challenge been as a professional, in that environment to him?
I've just come back, but I remember the quote. I think I would have challenged him to say, well, that's a bit, what do you say sometimes? It's a bit diluted. It's a bit simplistic.
Reductive?
Reductive. I would have said that's a bit reductive for a very complex system, and would have had a discussion then about, you've built a side at Liverpool based on a model of, as we've said, preamble of XT. I don't think you can then come up with a reductive argument saying it's just about this. I would have had a discussion about. Would you have liked to have seen his assumptions in that? I would have loved to have seen his. Yeah, I would have, because knowing the limited experience I've had with Ian is that he does generally have he has caveats with things.
He'll have baseline assumptions, which you say these things from, which is like a league average or better, average of conversion rates, for example.
I would have expected somewhere along the line in that conversation that may have not been included in the written piece to have been like
footnotes
to have said, well, the caveat being that they perform at league average or XG0, neutral, that kind of thing. I would have expected him to say, but my challenge to him would have been that's a bit reductive. Ian, what do you think? How else would you assess this? That kind of thing. Probably would have been the lines I've gone down. But he's as I said, I've only been in a room with him once, and it wasn't just me, and he's very good at talking exactly as is written in the copy, but he will often give caveats and baselines to what he would say, as many of us do at that level. If you hear me talk for too long, I'll give you caveat upon caveat upon caveat. So and just to say, you would have come in above me. Jesus Christ, it's Ian Graham.
Oh dear! Oh, outrageous!
I know my place. I know my place in the world.
Right. Okay. Let's go on to the fun stuff. Si, second half. We did look a little bit headless chicken towards the last 10 of the first half. Things were getting to us. The crowd was booing the ref mercilessly. Second half, right from the kickoff, we'd regrouped. and we looked like a different animal, I thought.
Yeah, I think the pen miss got to Mo a little bit. I thought he played well before the penalty, and retrospectively, everyone thought he was terrible. But I thought, obviously, the big Darwin chance that he created, but into the box, in this game, he had 19 touches in the box and 5. I think he had
20.
A combination of 13 carries and passes into the box as well. Which is
so remember the game against Arsenal last year when he had the most touches in the box in a Premier League match. That was 21.
Yeah,
and he had 20 in this match.
Right,
phenomenal.
But definitely I think they went in, and if you listen to Mo, what they did was calm themselves.
Yeah, they did look exactly what it looked like.
Because the ref didn't help, and the fans sometimes don't help, and I'm one of those. The ref started doing a couple of dickhead things, and it riled the fans. Which
the Joe Linton, the advantage, and then not booking Joe Linton was the egregious one.
Exactly, and then like 2 minutes later, Joe Linton should have been booked again.
Yeah.
And I think Joe Linton could have been booked 5 times in this game.
He could have, actually.
And that just started. I don't think Anthony Taylor had a bad game apart from that, really. That opened the door to questionable decisions later on, because he'd allowed that to go, which caused the players to go, well, you allowed that to go, and caused arguments amongst them. And so that like drifted. But the halftime, it allowed them to focus. Remember the process that they were applying in the first half was working, and they came out and it worked. And
that first goal, right? They can do it. The street ballers, as we call them, they can do it, right? Why can't we do this? Why can't we do this more often?
Well, you need the transition moment, don't you?
Okay, fair enough. Yeah.
So you need the opposition to come out.
But I just meant combining them, actually passing to each other.
Yeah. But you still need the space of that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Which is kind of what happened. Do you know what? Nobody's talked about the role that Zobo played in this.
Go on.
So apart from picking up it was the first goal, because remember, I'm done.
It was the first goal. Zobo was a big involvement on the halfway. Yeah.
Yeah. The Darwin laid the ball off, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he carried it 30 yards. Laid it into Diaz, who laid in a really nice pass. I actually think both you need a little bit of luck. I thought we had 2 passes in there that ended up going to a player that worked out better than they were intended to. I thought Darwin's pass was to Mo. I thought Diaz's pass was to Mo. Whatever, doesn't matter. Worked out beautifully in the end. But if you watch Zobo picking the ball up 20 metres inside our own half, sprinted the whole length of the pitch, and committed both the English grok twat that plays in midfield for them, Longstaff, and also Shah over to his side for making the third man off the ball run, which left a gap between Shah and Botman for Mo to be unmarked.
Yeah.
So without that, he'd have been in between 2 defenders. He probably still would have scored because he's brilliant, but it makes it so much harder.
Yeah.
And a lovely layback from Darwin, and we scored 2 goals from the hot zone. Who knew?
Yeah. And then Sucker Punch, Barts talks about Anthony Gordon and his positioning. He switches to the left, beats Salah. Is it Salah and Trent? He goes between them, and he commits 2 more players. And then
Dom's in there as well.
Dom's in there. He basically takes 4 players out of the game.
Yeah,
and he puts a nice ball in. But
yeah.
Van Dijk isn't as tight as he should be, and it's an absolutely brilliant goal. And you're thinking, fucking hell.
Yeah, I think Si mentioned something. I think Van Dijk drops off a little bit for this one, which is a bit odd because Konate's high.
Did he expect the other 4 players over on the right to deal with Gordon?
Probably. I mean, to be honest with you, 4 versus Gordon, you would have backed our guys, considering we'd started that well, to come out with the ball.
Yeah.
But then having dropped off, I don't know why he just doesn't go and engage with the player. Like, he just sort of, I don't know, he just doesn't get tight at any point. I think he had the opportunity to catch him up, get tight and block the shot off, but he doesn't. It's a great finish. I mean, it's probably something that I know you guys were chatting about. Darwin's finishing. It's a finish that I think Darwin needs to add to his repertoire, should we say? Because Isaac's a one-on-one and just bends it in the opposite corner.
He lifts it, doesn't it?
He lifts it. It's a curling lift. It's the exact finish. If you can't go around a keeper in that situation, you're going to bend it around in that way. So then that worked well. But yeah, I was watching it back again today.
There's not that many players who will make Van Dijk and Alisson look so ordinary in one move.
No, for sure. But I still think Vidi could do a little bit better. But
yeah, he could. Yeah, for sure.
But I think you want his 1v1 with Alisson, knowing how good he is, and we know all the stats. We said about it on this pod all season. To do that to Alisson to make him look like a passenger. It's actually a thing about both goals. Alisson, I don't think could have done anything with either of them.
Yeah, but as I said to you on the group last night, not necessarily a bad thing to take the heat out of some of the heat out of our defensive numbers, and we still win the game.
Yeah, I mean they scored 2 from 0.59 XG, which I mean in
a normal game,
you're annoyed about that, aren't you? So,
we lose 2-1 or something, and the opposition's got 2 from 0.59 XG. You know?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Yeah. And then it's back to 1-1. Hamzah, but we make our first subs of the game, but it doesn't really affect us in this match like it did in the Arsenal game.
Having Jota come on, he is quite a big difference maker.
He is,
and because again, it's something as we've discussed before, the way that Salah can sort of do everything in the attack. Jota is probably the closest to him in being able to link play and also create a bit and finish as well, quite clinically. Gakpo obviously is a bit different. Diaz is the dribbler and Nunez is the shot taker. But yeah, if there's a spectrum, Jota would be the closest to Salah in what he offers because he's quite sharp, functional, able to dribble in midfield and do all that sort of stuff. Szoboszlai also needed to come off because he was due to come off a minute earlier and then he pulled the hamstring, which is a bit unfortunate.
Do we have can I guess from the guys? Do we have a diagnosis yet on the Dom injury, a prognosis?
I've not heard anything. He came off early, but I don't know. I've not heard anything. So I might have heard something.
Cannot be today. They won't even know.
Yeah.
Does it look minor, or can't you tell?
He does it from a sprint into the box.
No.
So it's not like a shot taking action, but I don't know. It's fatigue probably. But we'll see. It scans today. We'll find out.
Fingers crossed. Sorry, Hamzah.
That's all right. But the balance of the attack changed because Jota went through the middle and Gakpo was on the left. So it just changed the...
Where he played against Burnley as well. It's a continuation, which is interesting.
We know the values of Jota playing as I remember a number of years ago when he first said it in the Champions League, was that the Atalanta match? He was excellent in that game. I think it was that match. It just adds a little bit more niftiness to the front line, and within a minute of them coming on, you noticed that it was different to the Arsenal match in that the fluency still remained, even though I don't think Gravenberch sort of fitted in as seamlessly as Jota and Gakpo did. There was a shot straight away. Kadisa's effort cleared off the line, and so often with substitutes you can lose a bit of that fluency and rhythm, but that wasn't the case here.
And Jota was involved, didn't score, but Jota was involved in that go-ahead goal, Hamzah, and what a tremendous run to offer the space, to get into the space for Mo Salah to pass it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
That was a beautiful blindside off the shoulder run, that.
Mm-hmm. So as Salah comes in off the right, Jota makes that movement just sort of between... The one thing here was I think the Sky Replay operator didn't show the ball was in Alisson's hands and then it suddenly was with Salah, so I don't know the exact process that led to that.
And Si, following that, bang, it was 3-1 with an unbelievable assist from Mo Salah.
Yeah, he got the ball. He waited. He saw a fella in the middle that could do nothing but deflect the ball into the goal with an unbelievable outside of the foot pass. It was better than Emre Can's at Southampton.
Was it better than his hockey assist for the Jones goal?
Yeah. We're in this weird position, right? I don't understand how Mo Salah needs advocates in fan media. It makes no sense to me that we have a player this very obviously great that needs defending from his own fans. And not only from his own fans, from the media pundits that used to play for Liverpool, who should be hugely pro Mo Salah, and they just aren't. It makes no sense to me. I had to watch how they talked about, very nicely, as Hamzah put, that Jota made a really, really nice run. But if you watch these, it's happened a lot of times this season. Sometimes Mo very obviously does this, makes the run, which leads Trent's pass. And they have this synergy, which is brilliant, and one can just tip off the other with a drop of the shoulder or with the first movement, and it leads to the pass arriving at Mo's feet at some point. But in this, it wasn't Mo passing to the run of Jota; it was Jota chasing the pass that Mo made. That was perfectly weighted. It was a brilliant pass, and it was a great run that got on the end of it and pulled back to yet another brilliant run from one of the eights into the box.
Yeah.
So,
do you think we take
three goals? We had 2 8s playing significant roles by getting their asses into the box.
Do you think we take him for granted, Si?
Mo Salah?
Yeah.
Of course.
But it's like this is his 6th season now, is it? Sustained excellence?
7th. And it's absolutely absurd. Weirdly, I never listen to the radio. Except
our podcast when you're not on them, of course.
Yeah, where I live in my village, just getting to my village, we've got like significant black spots of mobile phone coverage, and so my Wi-Fi dropped out the car. So whatever podcast I was listening to wasn't downloaded, and it just cut out. So I flipped onto 5 Live before the game, and Chris Sutton, you know, was jabbering away, defending Mo Salah to 3 other pundits on 5 Live, basically calling them idiots because they won't miss him during AFCON. And do you understand? He said, "Do you understand how good his output has been? You don't have footballers
22
that have goals and assists for 7 successive seasons that this fella has had."
Yeah. 22 goal involvements in 20 appearances this season in the Premier League. Incredible.
He literally leads the league in goals and assists and big chances created. Not only the league, Europe.
Yeah. 20 in this game, 20 touches in the box, 6 shots, 4 chances created.
2 big chances created.
Including the pens, 3.9 XG plus XA. Astonishing. 4 out of 4 shots on target, just unbelievable, and 20 touches in the opposition box. Just wow. He is on course to be.
He leads the league and Liverpool in like 15 different categories. Carries into the box, how we get the ball into the box, whether it's a pass or a carry. Touches inside the box, big chances created, big chances scored, hockey assists. He is the fella creating the goal, creating the pass before the chance, and the fella finishing it off. And it's still not good enough for most of our fans.
Well,
not most. That's hard.
I think we said first thing 2 months ago, if he carries on like he was, he will win Football Player of the Year for the 3rd time, and he will be the first to do that. And that will make him the greatest player in the history of the Premier League, because he will be the only player to have won it 3 times.
I think unless Haaland comes back and does
catches fire,
ordinary, I don't think there's anybody else to compete with him right now.
No,
because the other media darling is left to go to beat up on puddings in Bundesliga.
Yeah, the only one.
He has half of the goals this season, just over 50% for Liverpool.
Wow.
Yeah, it's typical. Last season he had 50
goals and assists.
He was involved in 54% of the goals. It's very normal. That's the thing. We take it for granted. It's just very normal for him It's absurd how normal it all is.
Yeah. If you look at sort of like progressive involvement, so like carries, passes, and passes received, he's third in the league. And if it's just progressive passes received, he's second. If it's just progressive passes, this is all players, by the way. He's 20th, and he's 10th for progressive carries as well. The issue, I think, is given he's so high for progressive passes received, how Liverpool go about rebalancing the attack in his absence.
Given that he has from forwards, he's number one of progressive passes delivered.
Yeah,
and then you get into stuff like the XA or the key passes. So, for example, he's at 0.3 XA of Liverpool players this season on my sheet. Elliott is slightly higher, but his minutes are negligible. So, the next best is Trent at 0.25. In terms of assists, Salah's going at 0.41. Nunez is higher, but Nunez's XA so his assists are 0.48, but his XA is 0.18. There's a big gap there.
But they're all to Mo.
Yeah, exactly, right. And I think Salah laid off a few really good two that really stick out to Nunez that he didn't get assists for. There's one that hit the post and was an own goal from Matty Cash, and then there's another one in a few games after that. Likewise, passing the penalty area, 2.28 of players that have played more. Well, actually, he's also the player with the most minutes as well. There's a lot of things just beyond the goals and assists that Salah offers that are going to be just quite hard to replace. And I think that the only way to do that is not just to put.
I would wager that it's not quite hard. It's actually impossible. I don't think we can replace that. Yeah.
But if as you've mentioned before, Dan, if you are going to sort of go about sort of recreating Salah in the aggregate, you're going to need a lot more output from Diaz and Nunez and
just
Gakpo.
like the Villa game, the way the West Ham game. Sorry, there you go. My Villa and West Ham confusion again. I am David Cameron. I do apologise. Just like the West Ham game, we could have mini Salah with Harvey Elliott in that right side creative forward role. Could be quite interesting.
For the three games that really matter, we just got to score from set pieces.
Yeah,
which is very possible.
Yeah,
we're underperforming them this season, I think.
So we are due.
There's a 50p head.
Currently we have 7.86 xG4 from set pieces, 101 shots, but just 5 goals. So
that's good. I'll take that. That's going to equalise soon. Talking about set pieces, Barts, somehow Newcastle end up getting a mismatch where Sven Botman's being marked by Diogo Jota and he sort of barges it into our net, which is a bit annoying.
Yeah, I was contemplating whether this is Konate or not, but it's sort of in between. He runs in between Konate and Jota and just ends up just put basically a free header and puts it in the net.
I think he might be 7 inches taller than Diogo. So
yeah, but isn't this one of his stats that when he was in France, he was exceptional at headers from set plays?
Right.
When we were looking at him potentially coming in, it was one of his attributes that he was really had a good season with. Was it Lille? I seem to remember.
He was Lille, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the reasons they were so high in the league that year. So yeah, it's not a surprise, but as you say, it's a bit of a mismatch. But I'm not entirely convinced that isn't Konate supposed to be dealing with that. Because I think it was at Arsenal. You guys were chatting about with the free kick we conceded goal there. That was Konate's error as well for not competing with the scorer. So with Gabriel, wasn't it, or Martinet, whatever it was. So yeah, it's just a bit of a trend maybe with Konate there.
And after conceding 6 xG. This seemed to create so much fume, this next decision of the second penalty, Bart.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous amounts of this. It was, okay, you could say he could have stayed on his feet, but I remember a penalty he wasn't given, but being blatantly barged over at Tottenham.
Oh, yeah. I mean, let's roll it back a bit, though. That Mac comes on at this time, by the way, and Endo goes off, and we say thank you very much. Have a
well
great
played,
time
Endo, by the way. Yeah,
well played, Endo. You've actually, I think you've been a real stalwart and spark to help provide a platform. Mac comes on smart, already playing vertical passes within his first few touches, and this one, I mean, packing stats alert. I think he plays it through 5, 6 players.
Yeah.
Either needle stuff, Jota's through it on goal, and there's a different feeling, isn't there, when Jota's through on goal? You know something's he's really quite good at this. But there's a lot of fume about this. People are saying, well, without that, Newcastle were in the game and it could have been 3 or what. I'm just not convinced. I think they were absolutely on the receiving end of, for all intents and purposes, what Kaylee would have called a paddling if it had not been a few little bits here and there. And I mean, if it was on the other side, right, I think we'd all be sitting there going, I think that penalty's a bit. Yeah, I think we'd all be probably a little bit annoyed. But the keeper does catch him. Does he go down?
And he's gone round him.
Yeah. He's gone round him,
and then he's
got caught. And as soon as he put that foot down that had been caught, he went over. But the few that come out, I mean, Wrighty and Shearer both saying that's absolutely shocking. Why is he not putting it into an empty net? Both of them have done, I should imagine, about the same. For me, he gets clipped on that foot. As soon as that foot that's been clipped goes down, gets put down, and he goes over. But yeah, I don't understand the fume. I don't think in the context of the game it really mattered. Did it really matter? Did any of us think we were going to lose at that point? I don't think we were. I think if anything, we just created more chances as we did in the latter part of the game. I mean, we still had several big chances to occur in the last sort of 10 minutes of play after the penalty. So, yeah, I don't understand the fume. Eddie Howe coming out, defending his position, saying he wasn't sure about either penalty. And that he felt that they should have had one, was it Endo on one of their players on 2-1 maybe? And he was arguing that point. But no, I'm on with you. I don't understand the fume. It was given on field, which I was shocked about to start off with, and VAR confirmed it. It's a penalty. Get on with it.
Yeah, and it was nice to see that maybe Mo goes back to his pre-game plan and goes across his body and into the bottom corner. Beautiful pen.
Beautiful pen. And that's I don't know. A side got the breakdown where Mo puts his penalties. So I would suggest he puts a lot more of them in the side net than he does down the middle.
He goes 40% down the middle.
Yeah.
Two of the ones he's missed in this burst have actually missed the target completely. He actually stuck him outside the post, didn't he? There was one against Forest, I think, and there was one against
Bournemouth and Arsenal.
Bournemouth was it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No, it was a good penalty strike. I think did you see we started doing the protecting the spot thing and the ball? So Trent stands on the spot, protecting the penalty spot. Someone else
was nice
after the ball. It's just a bit of it all comes into this pattern of a shift in our behaviours as a team, moving into gear from getting things right to now like right. Actually, boys, we're about winning these games.
Yeah,
we're about getting the points on the board, and this is what we're going to do. I just quite like VVD bollocking Trent on 30 minutes because he mishit a crossfield pass. You know, that kind of stuff about standards. This is what we do as a team. I think there's little things just starting to occur as we go along, which is good to see for me.
Yeah. And any other business chaps to finish off glorious? Any random things you want to
Can we
on the
just
match?
poke a hole in that Shearer, that general narrative, Gary Neville's a prick bullshit, right?
Yes. So, well, we all know he's a prick.
Let's just take our XG for this game. Let's just go in the middle and say it's 7, right? A record-breaking, Premier League record-breaking 7 XG. But there were 2 penalties. Okay, penalties get 1.76 XG, right? So let's take 1.5 off that. 5.5 XG. Oh, you mean a record-breaking 5.5 XG from known penalties? Yeah. But if those 2 penalties weren't given, did the game stop? Or what might have happened straight after those fouls that didn't occur, right? So if that foul hadn't occurred on Diaz, he would have had a shot from where? The edge of the 6-yard box.
Yeah,
so we're talking a 0.5 chance.
Same with Jota.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you're talking at least 6.5 XG.
Yeah.
Already on top of the record-breaking 5.5 XG pommeling that Newcastle took. Eddie was just trying to save his fucking job.
Yeah, 100%. We would have scored.
I were an absolute, utter disgrace for the way they undermined the massive pummeling that Newcastle took in this game.
Hamzah, you lost your sound before. Any final thoughts from you on this one? I'll give you the last word on this one.
I thought Gakpo's finish was rubbish, but the pass was really nice. And I think, and I say this with a large degree of sincerity, I think a great deal of the frustration that Liverpool fans would have had during the match would have been very real, but it wouldn't have been caused by the match, but by the commentary. Honestly, I think I was watching the match and I was enjoying it, and then I was hearing some commentary that was just like the wrong reading of the match, and it really
was
sort of
utter drivel. As in,
there were moments where you'd see a stat pop up and you'd have the wrong interpretation of it, or I think that honestly that kind of ruined the enjoyment. I think Si listens with it muted. I think so. I think he that's why he enjoyed it a bit more than everyone else. But yeah, I honestly I reckon that coloured a lot of people's perception.
So that can be everybody's New Year's resolution is to mute Gary Neville and enjoy the match, and not listen to his absolute drivel.
But yeah, another goal for Gakpo. His XG isn't that bad. He
gets into good positions in 6-yard box. That, to be fair, he does absolutely. But we will be back for a double cup pod at the end of next week, some after the Fulham game, to be confirmed. But it will either be Thursday or Friday next week, and then who knows what twists and turns our season will take from that point. But until then, up the fucking Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Tired of ads interrupting your favorite show? Good news. Ad-free listening on Amazon Music is included with your Prime membership. Download the Amazon Music app or visit amazon.com/ad-free-sports. That's amazon.com/ad-free-sports to catch up on the latest episodes without the ads. Enjoy thousands of Acast shows ad-free for Prime members. Some shows may have ads.